Welcome back to this two-part video on government contracting. In the last video, I talked a little bit about understanding government contracts and preparing for government contracts. In this video, I'm going to talk about the bidding process and managing government contracts. Again, these two videos are meant to be a primer for small businesses, large businesses, entrepreneurs that want to get involved in government contracting. If you don't know who I am, my name is Nicholas Coriano, went to business school, went to law school, run Servitude Intelligent Relations, where we develop RFPs, RFIs for clients, capability statements, business plans, a lot of business consulting. Check us out. But let's get into it. In this video, again, the bidding process and managing government contracts is what we're going to review. Again, supposed to be a primer for you guys. A lot of key buzz terms I dropped in the last video, like RFPs, RFQs, RFB. Look those things up. Sources saw. FAR regulations, FAR. But let's get to it. So the bidding process. So finding contract opportunities. How do you find contract opportunities? You generally find that contract opportunities on sam.gov for federal government. Okay. You can subscribe on sam.gov and they'll send you a notification every time there's a certain government contract for whatever you subscribe for. So let's say you want notifications for marketing contracts or airplane parts, right? Or manufacturing contracts. They'll send notifications right to your email. It's fantastic. So on the federal government level, sam.gov. On the state level, generally, it's on your state website. So Connecticut.gov or New York.gov, whatever your state local website is, they're going to have government opportunities during the state level. And then all the way down to the town and city level or village level, right? If your village, town, or city has a website, you can look on there. There's usually a section where you can find government contracts. So that's generally where you find government opportunities. As a side note, there's a bunch of other websites out there that will, like Bonfire and FedGov. And if you just type in government contracting, you'll see a ton of them that are not related to the government, and they kind of aggregate all of the government contracting opportunities for state, local, municipal. I'm not recommending any. I've heard that some of them are fantastic. So there are those websites out there that kind of aggregate all of those contracts in one place and then send you notifications based on your NAICS code. That's another key term, NAICS code. NAICS is how the government decides what kind of business you're in based on a code. Again, some of these buzzwords I want you to look up after. If you want to get involved in government contracting, there's a lot of key buzz terms you're going to need to know. Okay, so understanding solicitation is the next little topic under the bidding process. You want to understand what they're asking for. And generally, they're asking for a few things, right? Either an RFP, an RFB, an RFQ, sources sought, IFB. RFP stands for request for process. RFQ stands for request for quote, right? So request for proposal, I'm sorry, for RFP. Our a request for proposal is basically like, look, we need this product or service. Send us your proposal on how you would do it. Send us your proposal on how you would price it. Send us your proposal on your team, right? RFQ, request for quote. Send us your proposal, right? Send us your quote, right? So it's pretty straightforward. But every solicitation is different. So when you look on sam.gov, it's generally not all RFPs or all RFQs. They're one or the other. So you want to understand the difference and understand that the compliance and regulation is different on all of these things. Okay. The next thing is, how do you write a winning proposal? I have other videos on this, but generally, proposals ask for a few things: the technical requirements, your management, your cost, and your team, right? So the technical requirements are, the parts of the RFP. So if they're looking for, marketing services and they need, advertisement on television and billboards, what kind of technical experience you have or technical requirements are you going to implement to make that happen? Same thing with your management. They rely a lot on who are the people that are actually, going to do this government contract. Do you have the experience to win this contract? And then, of course, the cost. Now, sometimes, the cost is super important, and sometimes they don't care about the cost. Sometimes they want, just the best team and the best product, and sometimes they want the cheapest cost. So every proposal will tell you exactly what they want, and you want to make sure you understand the proposal that you're reading so you can bid properly and win the proposal. When you're putting together a proposal, make sure you're clear, concise, and you're compelling in your writing. The biggest tip I have is make sure you follow their criteria. If they tell you to use size 12 font, use size 12 font. If they tell you your proposal can't go over 3 pages, do not go over 3 pages. If they tell you they need A, B, C, D, E, make sure when you're writing your proposal, you give it back to them like A, B, C, D, E. Don't go A, C, B, right? Go in the exact same order, use the exact same headings, use the exact same titles, and use the exact same language that they're using when you're responding in order to have your best chances of winning a government contracting. Okay. The next thing is pricing strategy. So in the bidding process, they're going to ask for a price a lot of times if they're looking for a proposal or a quote. There's competitive pricing versus value-based pricing. So like I said earlier, sometimes they're like, look, we need the cheapest price. And sometimes you're going to say, we need the best quality, right? And we need the best value for the money. Understand the difference, right? Cost realism versus cost competitiveness, right? So in some cases, they want quality. And in some cases, they want price. Read the proposals, make sure you understand which one they're asking for, and that'll give you the best chances of winning the proposal. Um, the next thing is, how do you submit the RFP? This is again one of those areas that's highly debated and overrated, in my opinion, because we've made the idea of government contracting so complicated, but a lot of times they just want you to email the proposal. Sometimes they want a hard copy. Again, they tell you this in the RFP. I've done RFPs where they're like, email this specialist or this procurement officer before this date. And that's it. That's what you got to do. You got to email. Now, make sure you follow the criteria, right? It's got to be in a PDF format, or make sure to put this in the subject line. There's certain details. And sometimes they want hard copies. For example, we did an RFP last week where they wanted 3 hard copies in 3 separate envelopes, clearly marked on the outside of the envelope, and 1 emailed copy. So we had to email it for them. Then we had to mail 3 hard copies in 3 separate envelopes. And then the RFP also had to be on a USB drive, right? So again, the submission process, you got to meet the deadlines and just follow the submission guidelines. They'll be very clear in the RFP or RFB or RFQ that they're putting out, or the sources sought that they're putting out. They'll be very clear about how you're supposed to submit it. Make sure you're to the T, right? Submitting it exactly the way they want. So then, evaluation negotiation, understanding the evaluation criteria and preparing for post-submission negotiations. So usually in the RFP, 9 out of 10 times, they're going to tell you how they're going to evaluate it. So they'll tell you, look, we're giving you 10 points for the cost. We're giving you 10 points for your technical requirements, and we're giving you another 10 points for your management requirements, right? Another 40 points for this, another 20 points for that. They'll tell you exactly how they're going to grade, right, or give you points for your RFP submission or your RFB or RFQ submission. Make sure that you follow those outlines when you're preparing your RFP or your bid for the government contracts. And then get ready for post-submission negotiations. So just because they accepted or are going to move forward with you doesn't always necessarily mean they agreed on the price, or doesn't necessarily mean that they're completely sold on the management team, right? Or the way you're going to do it, the process which you're going to handle it. So be ready to answer questions later on. Be ready for one-on-one calls or Zoom meetings or Google Meets or Microsoft Team meetings with government procurement officers after the fact, to further explain how you're going to do it, to further sell yourself, further sell the management team, further sell your technical capabilities to the procurement officer or the government entity that you were bidding on. And then debriefing and protesting, right? So requesting a debriefing to understand why you won or lost and how to handle the bid process in the future, or how to handle bid protests and appeals, right? Generally, there's not a lot of room for pushback with the government. A lot of the procurement officers are not, 30 years in the business. A lot of times they're 1 or 2 years. They're rather young. They have a hard time kind of filling the procurement officer role on the federal level. On the state and local level, usually you're dealing with the person that actually needs the service. So you can kindly ask them, hey, why did I lose? Don't always expect a response back. If you were more proactive at the beginning of the process and forming a relationship with them, number one, you have a better chance of winning, but you probably have a better chance of getting some feedback as to why you didn't win. But always be kind and cordial if you are asking for feedback. on why you won or lost. And there's not a lot of room there, guys, if you lost, to get too much feedback on the process. Usually, it's if you look back at the RFP, RFQ, sources saw, RFI, and look at their rubric or their grading system or their evaluation criteria, you can see where you missed the mark. All right, in the second part of this video, we're going to talk about managing government contracts, right? So once you win the contract award, there's steps that you have to take after winning the award. Usually, they'll lay those out to you in the RFP or in the post award contract meeting. Um, but you want to set up your project team and your processes for success. So make sure that, whatever you bid on, if there was a timeline, if there were certain criteria, certain forms that need to be filled out, that you fill them out, to the mark, on the T, on the date, without any hesitation. There's going to be a lot of requirements for compliance and reporting on most government contracts, usually by every 15 minutes, right? You have to put down exactly what you've been doing and how you're billing them out. There's usually meeting contract requirements for delivery on the RFP, and there's usually regulatory reporting and documentation that needs to be done. Be ready for it, understand it, ask the questions from the procurement officer just so you understand, okay? And you don't miss anything. The next thing is performance management, right? Monitor project progress and performance and ensure quality and timely delivery of all the things that you said that you were going to deliver. This is one of the biggest mishaps that happens with government contracting. They win and then they drop the ball somewhere in the third week, fourth week. Most government contracts, while they can be for anywhere from, one-time objects, right, or one-time delivery of goods or services, to a year, 3 years with an option to renew for another 3 years or 5 years, they can fire you, right? If you're not meeting the criteria, if you're not meeting the timelines, they can get rid of you. So make sure that you have good time management, project tracking, and that you can measure the performance and progress of the contract. That way, you don't get fired, and you're assuring quality and timely delivery of what you said that you can deliver. Okay, handling modifications and changes is another quick topic that I want to talk about when you're talking about actually, you know, uh, managing the government contract. There's a lot of times in government contracts where things change, right? They need it faster, or they need it later, or they need more of it, or they need less of it, right? So you want to make sure that you're in constant communication with the contracting officer and getting ahead of the curve on those things, right? So if they need something earlier or later, the faster you know about it, the better it's going to be for you. But just be aware that, even after you win, they could change the contract. They usually put that clause or that disclaimer in the RFP or RFB, and just be ready for it, right? The next thing is proper invoicing procedures. Almost every government contract, whether it's state, local, or federal, will have specific invoicing procedures, whether it's every 2 weeks, every month, every quarter, every year. They're going to be different. You want to make sure you follow those to a T to avoid missing any timely payments, or having any disputes in the future. Um, just make sure you're following all the invoicing and payment procedures. And then be ready. I got two more topics here: audits and reviews, and closing out contracts. So audits and reviews. Be ready for government audits. Government audits will definitely happen if the contract is really, really big. They're gonna, want to look at your books. They may want to come visit your offices. They may want you to come down to their offices, have meetings with management, have meetings with your team. So make sure you're maintaining accurate records. Make sure you have documentation of what you said you can do, or who you are and what you can do. And be ready for these audits and reviews, right? Know that they're coming if you're going to win big government contracts or small government contracts. And those, by the way, those audits and reviews vary depending on the government agency, what part of the government you're dealing with, whether you're dealing with security clearance or non-security clearance issues, abroad or internationally, right? If it's an embassy somewhere else, it may have different criteria. If it's a local or state government, it may be totally different. But just be ready for those. They don't always tell you in the RFP or RFQ what those audits or reviews will look like, but just be ready for them. And then closing out the contract, right? Though once you're done with everything, there's going to be steps to successfully closing out that contract and making sure that not only are you paid, but that the government has said, hey, you successfully completed that contract, which is important for winning the next contract, right? So you want to make sure after you're all done, you do an analysis of the contract, and make sure, are there any things that we could have improved, right? Whether it was project management or interviews or fulfillment or technical capabilities that you may have had success with or problems with, right? So once you close out the contract, make sure you audit yourself to see, was there anything that we could have did better, anything that we could have did, worse, and make sure that you're ready for the next government contract. So I hope that was helpful. If it was, hit the like button, hit the share button, comment underneath in the comments section if you have any questions or any comments on your successes or failures in the government contracting world, or any resources that you found that have been super helpful. And check out the video before this, where I talked a little bit about understanding government contracts and preparing for government contracting. Again, my name is Nicholas Coriano. Servitude Intelligent Relations is the business, CERVITUDE. I hope this video was helpful. Keep rocking if you're an entrepreneur. Never give up. Keep learning, and I'll catch you guys on the next video.